All right, so I'm going to cover advanced heuristics session 2 today, and I'm going to just go ahead and start with sharing my screen, and we'll get right into this. So the repo here is heuristics, and the idea here is that I'm going to use Copilot to assist me with heuristics so that I can build things faster. And a couple of things I'll show here to start with is that if we go down to code spaces, one of the things that I've got set up now is I've got this thing called pre-build configuration. And what's nice about it, if we go to set up pre-build here and we look at the configuration, is every time I push a change, it'll actually rebuild the code space, which is pretty nice because it will essentially get things hot for me, essentially. So it's all warmed up and ready to go. And if we notice as well, if somebody wanted to make a copy of this repository and we go to dev container, there's a Docker file here that actually has, customized information inside. And then also inside of dev container, we have some information set up inside of here. So I'm going to go ahead and just launch this environment here by going to code, going to the code space icon, selecting it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this thing cooking. So this should be pretty quick to set up because of the fact that it is lightning fast, right, to get preload hooked up. And a couple things I'm going to point out here is that I'm going to go over to extensions. And I think for this kind of a project where I want to be building, new algorithms and trying out different ideas and heuristics, it's important to have the right tools available. And one of the things I'm going to do is I installed a utility called GitHub Copilot Labs. And these are experimental features for Copilot. And one of the things that this can do is it can actually translate code for me from one language to another, which is pretty cool because I think I will actually try to play around with that today and mess around with maybe swapping different versions of code in different languages. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to shift gears here, is I actually have GitHub Copilot Nightly. And so I want to use the latest version of Copilot so that I get, basically bleeding edge stuff. Now, that means that I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful when I'm using Copilot, but I'm okay with that trade-off because I want the latest stuff, right? So I want to use advanced features for Copilot. So one change I'm going to make here is I'm going to go to my makefile, and I need to add a step called refactor. And what this will do is this will be guardrails for the Copilot integration. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the formatting and the linting makefile steps so that I have this feedback loop where I can actually just run code very, very quickly, just over and over and over and over again, very quickly. And so if we go through here and we look at this, if I just type in make format, it will actually allow me to just really quickly both format, make lint, make refactor, make refactor. It'll both format and lint code, and it's just lightning fast. Make refactor, format lint, and we see that we have an issue here in this particular piece of code. So let's fix it. Let's go through here and fix this thing. Line 29, print results. Oh, so this is just a comment of asking how to explain something. So that's probably a good place to start with heuristics. We'll go ahead and do this again. Now, previously, I had run some examples here of like the a greedy coin change algorithm, and then I had built it into a like a command line tool and all that kind of stuff. Also, traveling salesman problem. And so, what I can do here now that I've got you know more of a Copilot friendly environment is actually build out something. In this case, we have a greedy coin example here that's pretty straightforward. And I can actually ask Copilot to help me explain what it is that I built. And so how would I do this? So if you do this, if you do a comment like this, you can say, and I believe this is from the lab. If I go through here, GitHub Copilot Labs, we can say explain code, right? And so uh, you can say custom explain code, code does the following, code does the following. So let's first look at explain code, and we can ask Copilot to explain it. And let's see what it says. And it says, here is the explanation for the code above. The function greedy coin takes one argument and the amount of change to be given to the customer. The function prints a statement to tell the customer how much change they're getting. The function initializes a list of coins, quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies, and a dictionary that maps the coins to their denominations, and then a bunch of other steps here. So what's cool about this is, look, I can actually, which is correct, it looks like a correct explanation. I can actually just make this now the documentation for maybe the module. So I can go up here and paste this in. Here is the greedy coin algorithm, right, like that. And now I've actually had a AI tool write the algorithm's explanation for us without me even needing to do anything, which is a pretty slick thing to be aware of. And if I go through here and I now say um, make format or make refactor, which will lint and format automatically, that's like a nice feedback loop to get things going. So what's cool, I guess, in a nutshell, is that I can write algorithms with Copilot, but then also ask it to help me explain and write up the documentation for it at the same time. Now, what would be kind of cool is that since I have gotten some success here with the greedy algorithm, is what if I wanted to make a version in a different language? I would say like Ruby or Rust or something like that, or Julia. I think would be kind of cool. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to take this piece of code, which is the core algorithm, and I'm going to say that I want to translate it. And so if we scroll down here, language translation, I'm going to take this piece of code and I'm going to say translate it, and let's see what languages it supports. So it supports C Sharp, Elixir. I mean, Elixir sounds kind of interesting. F Sharp, JavaScript, um, Objective C, R, Rust, Swift, a lot of different languages. Let's try. Let's try to do. So I'm going to make a directory called translations. Um, make directory called algo translations, and I'm going to translate this thing into a few different languages. So I'm going to start with ones that I've had some experience with. Swift, I think, is a good one. I've had some experience with Swift. There we go. So let's try it out. So let's copy. Let's try this, and let's copy this code. It's a little bit tricky to grab here. The UI is not great for that, but it's. Let's see here. So if I go and I say touch algo translations, Swift. Let's go over to this and let's go to algo translations, greedy coin Swift, and let's put it in. And let's just see what happens if we say, is Swift installed? So I forget how you install Swift code spaces, install Swift code spaces. This is probably something I'd want to do actually inside of my dev container. There we go. What did you do? Let's see what this guy says here. He says, do you want to install it in code spaces? There we go. So he's saying do this dev container, Docker file, Swift. Let's look at his Docker file. What did he do here? So he's doing from, see, this is not exactly what I want. So it does make things a little bit more complex. Install Swift Ubuntu. Let's make it a little bit more simple to, how do I install it? I think I can just download an installer. Now I have to find out what version of Ubuntu. I think it's Ubuntu. Does it have like a, which version of Ubuntu? LSB release A. Let's go ahead and run this. So it is not Ubuntu, it's Debian 11, which would be, I don't know if it matters. CentOS, Debian, Debian 11. I guess I could just do using downloads. Ubuntu. Install Swift code spaces. Debian, how about Debian 11? Install Swift on Debian 11. What do we got here? Okay, so wow, this is a little bit complicated. So I think I'm not going to do Swift. so I'll have to come back to this one. It looks good, but let's see what languages are installed. Do I have Ruby? RB, right? So install sudo. Let's do install Ruby on Debian 11. I guess I should look at my Docker file, right? I should look at what I've got. Docker file. And it is running, see, it's running a Python version. So it's not going to have everything that I need for other languages installed here, which does make things a little bit more complex for installing different languages. So the code translation is less useful when you don't have access to all of the languages. It does make me wonder whether it's a good idea to get into this, especially because Debian 11 Ruby. Let's see how hard that is. Debian 11 Ruby, install Ruby on Debian 11. Is this super tricky? Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's easy. So let's add some of this to our Docker file. So if we go here, we say, we already did app update. We can say and let's do sudo apt install Ruby full. Probably don't need to do sudo. And then what else do we need to do? I think that's it. So notice now it says, do you want to rebuild? and we can just rebuild real quick. So we can just go through here and we can just say rebuild container. So we do want to do that. So let's go ahead and try it out. So this will go and rerun everything, which will take a little bit of time, which is a little bit annoying. So while the Ruby's running, let's look really quick how I could also get potentially a Swift running, which I think this won't be that bad. Swift has no Debian packages. You can just install the Ubuntu to work. Well, that's promising. So I think in this case, because I already have Python enabled, that this, according to this guide, that I might be able to just very easily download and install Swift if it's necessary. Container build failed. That's not good. So it's probably because I added is in recovery mode. Like I think what the issue is, I probably screwed this up. So let's see, apt-get update and export Debian front end non-interactive, install Vim. Oh, apt get install Ruby full. Let's try that. I think that's the problem. That's, in fact, I could just try it, right? I could just go like this. Apt-get apt to apt-get. Why is apt-get not actually available? Apt-get install -y. Yeah, if this is becoming a big issue, try one more time to build it. If it's a big issue, I won't do it. Let's see if this works. I just had the command incorrect. So getting a multi language environment could be a challenge. So this could be one of the downsides of using code translation, is that you would have to get an image that's got like a lot of different stuff installed, which is fine. I mean, maybe that's one of the things that I do is try to get a couple of these installed so that in the future I can easily get these environments set up, because it is getting saved, right? Because I think this worked. I just had a misconfigured command, and so hopefully this is super quick to rebuild this. I don't know how smart. Pretty smart actually. So that's not too bad. So if I type in RB, what happens? Let's let the finish go through here. Let's see what they say for Ruby. Pseudo Ruby version. That seems weird. But let's try. Okay, so pseudo Ruby version. Ruby looks. I actually don't. I mean, 2021 Ruby. Let's try it out. So I'm gonna go back to my algo translations. I'm gonna go to Greedy Coin here. I'm gonna go back to my extensions, which unfortunately are now hidden. Copilot. Yeah, I want this other extension. So I want the Copilot Nightly. Copilot, the experimental one. This one. I want Copilot Labs. Yeah, that's the one I want. This extension is enabled locally now, and I think I also, once I've got this enabled, Copilot Labs, I want to write this extension to my dev container. See this? So that it'll store. We don't need to do that for right now. And now I want to go back to this, and I want to go to the greedy coin, and I'm going to take this piece of code, and I'm going to say language translation. I'm going to try to translate it to Ruby, which should be very, very similar to Python. Like they're not that far off as languages. So let's see what happens. And then I can try out my Ruby code. It's been a long time since I wrote Ruby, but let's try it out. So let's go through here, and let's try out our translation. So I'm going to go back to this directory, algo translations. I'm going to change into it, algo translations. I'm going to say touch greedy coin.rb, and let's see if we can get this Ruby code working. So greedy coin, return a dictionary with a coin type as key. So just intuitively, it looks, again, because it looks kind of like Python. Now, this is where Copilot, I think, is really going to help me out, is, if I needed some kind of advice, like, and there we go. So it's going to run. We just want to run greedy coin, test it out. So let's go ahead and try it. So we'll say Ruby greedy coin. Oops, greedycoin.rb. And there we go. Look at this. So pretty slick that I can translate. I guess when it's an algorithm or heuristic, that it does work quite well to translate things to Ruby. And so if I was more comfortable with one language than another, and I'm building heuristics, I could even find a heuristic in another language and then easily translate it by using this tool. So let's see what else we got on our system here. If I go to Node, is Node installed? No, or yeah. So npm. So I think the Swift might. It sounds kind of promising to see if I can get Swift next and see if this translation will work. Well, first I'm gonna put this code in. So status. And we'll say git add.dev container, and we'll say git add all this code in. We'll say adding in Ruby translation, which again is pretty cool. And I could just make a list, in fact, in the README of what languages I've got installed, which will go into my dev container. So I would say if we go week 2, we're doing algo translations. And we'll say using advanced features of Copilot labs to translate algos. So first step, we got Ruby installed. I could say languages installed via dev container. So and verified in translate, right? So we'll go Ruby. Ruby isn't done. I would say Rust seems promising as well. Let's see. Rust Debian 11 got to be trivial. Let's see, how hard is it to install Rust? All these like low quality SEO. I don't want to use low quality SEO. So it looks like you're using or Linux. You just do this. I mean, let's look at the getting started real quick. Build your projects is available in MIDI editors, VS Code. What does it say for VS Code? Install Rust up. Well, let's see. And now that would be great. Can I just have Visual Studio Code just do the work for me? If I do this, I say install Rust, or I just say Rust. does Visual Studio Code, let's see, GitHub code spaces, install Rust. This project is a starter for using code spaces. This looks promising. I'm going to start it. And a basic environment. So, there we go. Look, dev container. What's in the Docker file? Ubuntu, that looks good. We have a path here, that's good. Setup, what does this do? Some things we probably have. Sounds interesting to use this. I suppose I could try that, although I could just say let's make it simple, and let's grab this, and let's go back to let's create a directory called installs. If I'm going to use this many languages, I'm going to have to start getting methodical about it, and I'm going to say touch installs setup Rust, that. And then what I can do is go into setup Rust and just make a little shell script here. User bin env bash. And in theory, even Copilot will help me. So like install Rust. Let's install Rust. Nah, we don't want to do that. How about setup path maybe? Like, will it be smart enough? Sure, I like it. Good job. What else do I need to do? No, I think that's all I need to do. Maybe that's all I need to do. And then source it. Sure. And now all I would need to do would be, in theory, to go to the Docker file, which I can't find for some reason. Dev container, Docker file. And I believe we would just need to go to install global node packages. Source. If node version. Yeah, I mean, probably I do want to install Node at some point, but I could just make a command here that says, install other languages. And if I said this, run, I could say sudo / installs. I need to put the full path to things. That's what I don't know. Let's see here. Do I see temp, source virtual environments? I don't know what the path is here. Maybe I could find this out by looking at something else. I mean, it's not going to hurt to probably change it to installs and then type in pwd, and it's going to be this installs, and it's going to be, what did I call this? Setup Rust. So I'm going to go back to this Docker file and just say sudo that's setup rust.sh /. I mean, in theory, so let's just run this and just see what that does. Chmod, is that not? Then the work. Mod plus X this directory. We don't want that. We want to do run this. There has to be like an auto. Let's see what his setup says. Update. So I'm going to tweak this a little bit. I'm going to go to the setup and I'm going to say, what does this do? Setup. Let's add that. Let's do that. So that'll just do the yes question. Now, cargo, I always forget about. I'm not a Rust expert, but this, I'm going to go back to the documentation and say, if you've used RustUp in the past, RustUp is managed by RustUp. That looks, I think this is all I need. I think this is all I need. So I'm going to cancel and I'm going to just run this. Let's see what happens. And in theory, the container should auto build this thing in the future for me. Great. And if I just type in Rust, well, source it, to source it, Rust, which I don't know why Rust doesn't seem to be working here, but the cargo bin Rust is installed. Let's double check real quick. So once you've got it running, how do you know Rust is working? If I go through and I just say source /rc Rust is Rust not working. If I tilde -rc, is it in there? Oh, look, it is. It did go in there. I guess I could look what's in there. I could do that and just say ls-l. Am I typing in the wrong command? Is it rustc? Is that what I'm doing wrong? Rustc? Oh, Rust compiler. There we go. So I'm basically ignorant. I don't know what I'm doing. So I think this would work. I think if I run this in the future, this will install Rust for me automatically from Docker, which is pretty cool. So now I can go back to my other environments and get all this stuff cooking. So let's go back to our algorithms again, algo translations. And I guess I could just CP things inside of there to just make it easy. So let's CP greedy coin to algo translations. And now I'm going to close some things. Close this. So we can go to the greedycoin.py right here. And I'm going to go to Copilot Labs. And I'm going to again grab this. I'm going to say, look, I want you to translate this thing to Rust for me. Let's go find Rust. Perfect. Rust. Ask Copilot. There we go. We got a Rust version of this thing. So let's touch all this greedy coin. But what is a Rust file? I guess I can look at real quick. Rust what is the, they have here packages. What do you call things? .rs. Okay, .rs. So .rs. There you go. So let's go back here. Let's find a REST version. Did I put this in the wrong directory? Oh, I did. So I need to mv greedycoin rs to algo translations. Now I can go in here and do Rust. All right, so let's take a look at this Rust code. It looks as well pretty clean, right? So we have a function. We've got a hash map here, some coins, and it looks like it's going to loop through and find the biggest coin first, and print things out. So now all I have to do is just say run this, which you need to have a main function. I think Rust won't even compile, if I remember correctly, without a main. So I can say, well, there you go. It's doing it for me. So we have it. And I think I can just type in rust c and greedy coin dot rs. Happens. Oh, because I'm in the wrong directory. So algo translations. So let's go ahead and do that. Couldn't read it. Greedy coin. Rust c greedy coin rs. So we got some bugs in this. What does it say? It says, cannot find type hash map, not found in this scope. Consider importing it. Okay, so that's one of the things that happens when you're not an expert in a language, when you use a translation to translate it in algorithm, which makes sense, right? We need to actually use the standard library. So that's one. Let's see if I run it again, what happens. Method exits, but its traits are not satisfied. Might be, so this could be a good example of I'm not good enough yet to know how to fix this. Coin are not satisfied. Yeah, so I had one failure, and I could put a note here that says up here, like broken code, not working. So that was definitely a kind of a fun little experiment to play around with, to see how things would work in translating things. I guess maybe the other thing that would be kind of fun is to see if I can get the Swift version running as well, because it looks like this is not too bad here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put this. I'm assuming I need this stuff. I mean, that's always the fun part, is pasting somebody's code on the internet. But I'm going to go to Dockerfile, and we'll say install Swift. So at least I can break it down into sections. Whoa. That it's, I'm going to have to put this, well, I'll clean that up. I wish there was a simple formatter tool, but let's just do one problem at a time. So we got this, and then what I don't know is this the right version of Swift? So I just need to go to the swift.org and find the latest version, download, and let's find the Ubuntu. And what version are they doing here? So they're saying 2004. Okay, I guess we could do that. And so this is Swift 5.7. And what happens? So if I just click on it, I just say, basically copy this link, copy link address. So if I say curl run, you get, so it's, wow, it seems to be so smart. It knows how to do this. Wow, this is crazy that Copilot is telling me which version to use. Let's double check. Is it 5.5? Why 5.5? Why not 5.7? Maybe I need to run 5.5. Development, older versions. Seems like the one that I should do is 5.7. So let's tweak this a little bit. Swift. So let's just paste this in. What looks different? Download, Swift builds, release. I mean, it seems like I want this. Yeah. So let's do this one. Let's do wget. And let's again look at this other guy's docs. Yeah, wget. And then I would just do a tar and then a move. Yeah, so this looks good. So run tar. That looks good. And then run. Wow, not bad. Anything else? Anything else? I don't know what the heck the rest of that is. I think I just need this. That's all I need. The only other thing I would need to do would be to do the echo to the bash as well. Yeah, this looks pretty slick actually. Boy, it's amazing that something that can be very complex, user share. Yeah, something that can be extremely complex. Opt Swift. See, that's not exactly what I want. Let's see if it'll autocomplete. That's what I want. Yeah. So basically, these are old school Linux kind of things that people need to do. So it looks correct. So I'm gonna go on a limb here and see if I rebuild my container, will it just work? Now I need to do a run. There you go. Now, I mean, I guess I could do ands for these. Probably the cleaner way to do this would be and. Okay, so we'll do and that and that's and the last one. I can get rid of these runs. Tab it, make it a little cleaner. So we do this, do this, we do this, do this, and in theory, we do that, and that, and that, and that, and that. Yeah, this looks good. So next up, I'm going to rebuild the container, rebuild container, and let's see what happens. I mean, it's a little bit crazy to just try a bunch of very complex shell commands and put them into a Docker container, but who knows? This might work. Okay, if I look at the logs, we can see if it's doing any other fun stuff. So it's installing Ruby, which I had set up earlier, and then it should install Rust, which I had a problem with something. Container build failed. I did something bad. View logs. It's probably because I have too many tricky things like this. I mean, who knows if this works? In fact, is currently in recovery mode, which is kind of a bummer. I mean, I guess I could just put this into like a shell script potentially, right? So if instead of it in doing this, what if I just put all this into installs and I say touch installs, setup Swift sh, something like that. I just grab all this, and that makes it at least easier to debug, right? Like where I don't have like all this crazy stuff going on in a shell script. I think this is an easier way to debug things, and then I'm able to incrementally solve the problem. So let's do that. Let's do this. It's very possible there's a bug in this code somewhere. That's what the issue is. And do this. Say user bin env bash and audit to x install setup Swift. I can do workspace heuristics install setup Swift. What happens? See if it works. If this works, then it means that I could put this into the Docker file. Let's see first. Does it do anything? Probably want to say source tilde dot hrc as well. Huh. Source tilde hrc. And user share Swift. Oh, did I copy it wrong? User share Swift. Export path. I don't think that's what we want. We want user share Swift. Let's double check what this other guy put here. So we want something like this path. So we want opt Swift user bin, user share Swift bin path. And so now we just need to double check that this actually has things in it. There you go. So that's our path that we want. So yeah, it's important to debug this stuff in the real world before you commit to it. This is like a trial marriage where you get fully committed, and then go through here, and we go back to my bash RC. We just get rid of some stuff probably. And that's I don't like that it overwrote that. That's not good. So if I go back to this, I could just do the same thing. I could just say sudo slash and do install setup Swift, something like this. That would get us Swift setup Swift. Now, this might work. I mean, this is would so if I just want to rebuild real quick, rebuild container. Well, actually, I would actually probably want to just go rebuild the whole thing real quick. And in fact, how could I do this? I could go to the code space real quick. And let's see if this will just automatically rebuild. So if there is an issue, not a horrible, it's recovering in this mode. So if I say get status, add a container file, and let's just try real quick to see it. So rm the Swift, git add everything. Build. So this is some, if I do want to do a lot of algorithms, I'm going to have this thing configured back and forth and heuristics. I'm going to have to go ahead and do that. So if I go back here, we should see a rebuild process occurring under, I believe, settings, code spaces here, see output currently running. And then we would see if it actually got fixed. Now I'm kind of curious how quickly it can rebuild things. And I guess we can find out real quick. When you make changes to Docker itself, what actually happens. Well, this is a good place to stop. And I will do less build configuration next week. But it was good to actually test out some advanced Copilot features, and they appear to work very well. So thank you very much. And that is it for this week.